So if you've made it to the interview stage, it means that the company or the school is really interested in you and they want to meet you in person, listen to your voice in person, and just overall assess whether or not you would be a good addition to their school or company. Even if that's the last step that you make it to, consider that a huge accomplishment. And these are some things that have happened either to me or people that I know here in Japan during the interview process. So perhaps sharing these incidents with you can help prepare you for your interview. So one thing that you might be asked to do that a lot of people who aren't used to doing this have trouble with, but for people that are used to working with children or have experience teaching in the classroom are used to it, is reading a storybook. Sometimes they will give you a big book or a popular storybook such as The Very Hungry Caterpillar, The Little Red Hen, or even just a passage, and they ask you to read it. And what they're doing is probably judging if you're reading at a pace that their students could understand, or if you're reading clearly, do you read with expression? So definitely, if you're not used to reading storybooks, practice reading a storybook so that you can read comfortably. You can even change up your voices and pretend that the interview panel is actually students or children. That will make it a lot easier. Look how pretty these tulips are. Another thing that you might be asked to do is take a test. There was one interview where I was given a test and I totally didn't know what to expect. They were checking to see my writing and how I printed. They were checking to see how familiar I was with different expressions. And you know, it's a little nerve-wracking when you're taking a test and you're writing and you're asked to write different things in manuscript printing. That's something that I'm used to doing from teaching elementary school in Los Angeles. But if you're not used to working with children or printing or even cursive writing, and they ask you to do a test like that, you sometimes have to be prepared. Now, one of the things that I was kind of thrown off by this one school is that they had a very specific and certain way that they wanted their teachers to teach writing. So they were looking to see how neat it was, how precise everything was, and then on the phrase test, they had a series of phrases with, you know, blanks, like blank and blank. And you'd have to choose from a list of vocabulary words and put them in the sentences. So I think one of them was something like eggs and bacon or bacon and eggs, and it was marked wrong if you wrote eggs and bacon because they said in most Western cultures they use the phrase bacon and eggs or bread and butter, like you wouldn't say butter and bread. But when you're thinking about it from a, you know, just a language point of view or a vocabulary point of view, the order shouldn't matter. But this particular language school wanted to teach phrases like that in the order that they felt was the correct order or the way that most people spoke. And that test was a little intimidating for me because I did get a lot of things wrong. And one of the things that in my head I thought, oh my gosh, was one of my letters went a tad bit, I mean just a millimeter or so over the line, and they said everything should be right within the lines. One of the things that they said to me after the entire test was over was that I was one of the people that scored the highest, even missing all of that. And they said that if I were to work at their particular school, I would have to relearn all my bad habits and follow their particular way of teaching. Now, that interview was kind of a one-of-a-kind interview. It lasted 4 hours. 4 hours. They offered me the position, and even though I didn't have any other job at the time, I turned it down. I turned it down because that style of teaching was not for me. It might be a good opportunity for someone that's just starting out and maybe needs that type of structure or some type of program. So depending on what your experience is or what you're looking for, that could have been a good place for some of you. It just wasn't the right place for me. Another thing that you might be asked to do, so have something in your back pocket just in case, is sing a song, sing a children's song. You know, you can't be shy because if you're planning to work with small children at the elementary school level or even at a language school that teaches kids, this is something that you might have to do in your daily work job. And I would say just come out of your comfort zone, don't be shy, and just go all out and do it. If you're worried about it, practice in front of a mirror, practice at your house so that when it does come time to the interview, should that be a question that they ask you, then you can just, you know, go up with confidence, sing at a loud voice, be animated, make it so that it doesn't matter what kind of voice you have, but you could get everybody in the room singing. And that's, I think, more what they're looking for. They don't care whether you're, you know, a famous singer. They don't care whether you're on pitch or on key. Basically, I think what a lot of schools are looking for are enthusiasm, articulation, and whether or not you have the ability to just maybe come out of your shy comfort zone and do that in front of a bunch of kids. People sometimes worry, okay, well, you know, is it okay to have dyed hair? Is it okay to have a mohawk? Is it okay to have to wear a lot of makeup? Is it okay to wear false eyelashes? I don't really have a right or wrong suggestion for you because it really does depend on what the school or the company is looking for, and it also depends on how you are or what your personality is. And you know, if it were up to me, I would say be who you are, but make a good impression. Try to be as clean and presentable as you can to make a good first impression. Obviously, for some reason, showing up in a nice suit or a very conservative outfit is probably going to score you a little bit more points than if you showed up in jeans or a t-shirt or your athletic gear. Now, that being said, you do have to think about what the job is. If you are for example, if you're interviewing for a PE teacher, you would probably still come to the interview in your suit, but you may want to bring a change of clothes just in case they ask you to do a demonstration, or if in case they ask to observe you in play or doing some sort of activity with the students or with the children. There may be a little bit more strict guidelines if you're interviewing for a position that's going to teach English in a company. They will probably want you looking as professional as their employees. But if you are maybe working with small children at a kindergarten, maybe it is acceptable to come in something other than a nice suit. I would say just do your research, do your homework, look online, but I would say in general, just assume that Japan is following most of the same strict procedures that places in other countries follow, which means professional business attire, a very clean look, and looking professional. Another question that sometimes people wonder about are things like jewelry, piercings, tattoos, colorful hair, all of those things. And once again, I don't have a clear answer for you. It depends what the school is looking for and how strict their own dress code is. Sometimes, you know, a lot of people will complain saying, oh, they didn't like me because I had a beard, or they didn't like me because I had a mustache, or I was wearing false eyelashes, or whatever. It may not be the school or the company that is against you looking or wearing what you feel like. It could be their clientele. Remember, when you're working in a school system, you are being trusted by parents, by members of the community, and as a teacher, you have kind of a lot of responsibility and a lot of obligations, and the schools have to make sure that their decision to hire you is not something that will create a lot of anxiety or anger from their community or their parents. It could be seen as a little bit of a shallow way of thinking, or you could feel that, oh, I'm not being accepted? I'm not a Japanese person. I am from a foreign country. Why can't they accept the fact that I have, tattoos on my arm? Or why can't they accept the fact that I have 5 piercings on my ears, or I have a nose piercing, or whatever it is? And it's just something I think you have to decide whether or not that would be the right location for you to work at. I do know people that do have or have had multiple tattoos, or have had lots of piercings, eyebrow piercings. And what they did is, during their interview and during the first couple of weeks of their new position after getting the job, is they toned their dress down a bit, just to prove who they were as a teacher and gain the respect and trust of the parents. And little by little, as they started working there longer, then they could increase, or they could show a little bit more of themselves. A lot of times too, when you're getting interviewed, that might also be a chance for them to also check into your social media accounts. So you really have to kind of think carefully about the image that you're putting out there. And another part about interviews is, sometimes if you are interviewing for a position that asks what level of Japanese you speak, or if you are interviewing for a position that is requiring that you speak a certain amount of Japanese, be prepared to have a Japanese section in your interview. So I'm back in my car again after filming today in so many different locations, and in the background you hear the politicians look, politician, it's election season. So basically, interviews in Japan are just the same as in any country. You can't really predict how it's going to go. You can't really predict the questions, or how many people are going to be on the interview panel, or even who is going to be on the interview panel. Sometimes, like in JET, when I interviewed with the JET program, it was 3 Japanese nationals. But now I've heard that they have former JETs, or people that have worked on the JET program before. Once again, it's just like applications. You have no idea what they're going to be looking for, what type of things they will be assessing or judging. They might not even care about what you look like. They may only care about what you sound like. They might care about what you look like. And maybe they're looking for somebody with teaching experience and credentials, or maybe they're looking for somebody that is new and fresh and just excited to come and work in Japan. And that's where this particular video obviously cannot give you that golden ticket to the job, but it can maybe give you a little bit of insight on how you can better prepare. And once you're going through the interview process, and even afterwards, after the interview is over, it's going to be up to you to decide whether or not that was the right place for you. Did you feel comfortable with the people that were interviewing you? Did you feel comfortable with the questions they were asking? If you had a good feeling during the interview, you probably let your best self shine through. But if for any reason maybe you felt a little uncomfortable, or maybe you weren't quite sure how to answer the questions, or maybe you just didn't get a good feeling about the interview, that's nothing to be ashamed of, or embarrassed by, or upset with, because it could just be a signal that maybe that particular job, or the particular criteria they were looking for, might not be your strongest points. That might mean that there's just something better out there waiting for you. Maybe after the interview you don't feel confident, or maybe you have some hesitations or some questions, or maybe you felt really, really good about it. And whatever the outcome, this has been a learning experience. And if you by chance did not get the position, that just means that there's something better out there waiting for you. I strongly believe that. So please don't get discouraged. Maybe do a little bit of research. Think about what maybe you could have done better or been a little bit more prepared for. But for me, I would say the main thing is to be yourself. If they didn't like what they see, or if you weren't the right fit, then there's a reason why you didn't get that position. So I hope this video gave a little boost of confidence and maybe a little bit of ammunition to prepare yourself for an interview with a company or school in Japan. If you found it helpful or you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to join us on this series, Teaching in Japan, please feel free to comment, ask questions, give advice yourself, share your experiences, and be there for each other. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you next time. Bye.